John Philip Sousa was dubbed the March King by a British journalist after his march, the Washington Post, swept dance halls in America and Europe. Known for writing more than 100 marches in his lifetime, Sousa revolutionized the musicianship of bands, including the President's own Marine Band, which he headed from 1880 to 1892. His success and popularity with the Marine Band led to his fully professional band, Sousa's Band, touring the United States and Europe, with his musicianship rivaling some well-known symphony orchestras. My name is Dr. Dominique Royam, and I'm a music director, conductor, and music communicator, here to help you achieve a deeper connection to the music you love. Follow me on social media at Dominique Royam for more content. Let's talk about the life of John Philip Sousa. Sousa was born on November 6, 1854, in Washington, D.C., to João Antonio de Sousa, who was born in Spain to Portuguese parents, and his wife Maria Elizabeth Trinkhaus, who was German and from Bavaria. He was the third of 10 children for the couple. His father, whose name was Americanized to John Anthony Sousa, played the trombone in the Marine Band. Sousa began his musical education at the age of 7. He studied violin, piano, flute, several brass instruments, and singing, though violin was his favorite instrument. At the age of 13, Sousa wanted to focus on the violin and join a circus band. To prevent this, Sousa's father enlisted him in the Marine Band as an apprentice, with the rank of boy. He also continued his private music theory and composition lessons with local Washington, D.C. orchestra leader and teacher George Felix Brenkert. Other than one 6-month period, Sousa stayed with the Marine Band until he was 20 years old. After being discharged from the Marine Band, Sousa went on to play the violin in theater orchestras, touring and eventually conducting productions, including Gilbert and Sullivan's HMS Pinafore on Broadway. In 1876, he moved to Philadelphia, where he was a composer, arranger, and proofreader for many publishing houses, along with continuing his theater conducting career. It was this theater connection that led to him meeting his wife, Jane Van Middlesworth Bellis, a singer. The couple was married on December 30th, 1879, and went on to have 3 children, all musicians themselves. Sousa loved operetta, leading him to write 15 during his life. While in Philadelphia, he wrote the incidental music and the march for the musical Our Flirtation, with which he also toured. While on that tour for Our Flirtation, Sousa received a telegram offering him the directorship of the Marine Band. He accepted the appointment, and he and his wife traveled back to Washington, D.C., where he reported for duty on October 1st, 1880. Sousa's tenure as the 17th leader of the President's own Marine Band was revolutionary. It was Sousa's first time conducting a military band. Sousa changed the type of music the band played, moving them to more symphonic transcriptions, upping the level of musicality required for the players. He also changed the instrumentation to meet his programmatic needs. Rehearsals were very strict, and he focused on technique and musicality. He shaped the Marine Band into the world's premier military band, a title it still holds today. Sousa began to compose for the Marine Band and started to garner notice amongst military band crowd with his march The Gladiator. Written as a tribute to Charles B. Towle, a journalist at the Boston Traveler, the march sold over 1 million copies and was performed regularly by bands around the country. The next march to make a big splash was 1888's Semper Fidelis, now the official march for the United States Marine Corps. Considered by Sousa to be his finest march, he was quoted by saying, "I wrote Semper Fidelis one night while in tears after my comrades of the Marine Corps had sung their famous hymn at Quantico." Let's listen to the President's own Marine Band play the opening to Semper Fidelis. The next year, 1889, the new owners of the newspaper The Washington Post commissioned Sousa to compose a march for the newspaper's essay contest award ceremony. The Washington Post march was debuted at the award ceremony attended by the sitting president, Benjamin Harrison, and a large crowd on the grounds of the Smithsonian. Written in compound double meter, 6/8, it matched the new dance craze in the United States and Europe, the two-step. It became popular to play the Washington Post March to dance to the two-step, so much so the dance was called the Washington Post. Let's hear the president's own Marine Band play the Washington Post March. After 2 successful tours with a Marine band, Sousa was approached by his manager, David Blakely, to form a civilian band. In 1892, Sousa resigned from the Marine band and created Sousa's new Marine band. Criticism from Washington led Sousa to drop the new Marine part of the band name, calling it Sousa's Band. The civilian band was made up of the finest players in the country and rivaled the expertise of major symphonic orchestras of the time. From 1900 to 1910, the band toured the U.S., Europe, Great Britain, the Canary Islands, and the South Pacific, cementing its legacy of the world's best-known band. During World War I, Sousa rejoined the military, this time the U.S. Navy Reserve. He was 60 years old and was given the rank of lieutenant and trained young bandsmen at the Great Lakes Navy Training Center. He donated all of his naval salary except a token $1 per month to the Sailors and Marines Relief Fund. He was discharged from service in 1918 at the end of the war, but continued to wear his naval uniform for special events and concerts. In the 1920s, he was promoted to lieutenant commander in the Naval Reserve, but never returned to active duty. Throughout his life, Sousa was a champion of both music education and composers' rights. He was one of the inaugural members of ASCAP, the American Society of Composers, Authors, and Publishers, in 1914. He then served as its vice president from 1924 to 1932. He also testified before Congress on the topic of composers' rights in 1927 and 1928. Sousa championed universal music education after returning to his band after World War I, and regularly judged band competitions and conducting what would now be called clinics for educational bands. Sousa would agree to guest conduct community and professional bands all across the country, as many as he could fit into his schedule. Sousa was an indefatigable worker, proclaiming that when you hear of Sousa retiring, you will hear of Sousa dead. Even though he was pigeonholed as the March King, many of his works were of other genres. He wrote over 130 marches, 15 operettas, 5 overtures, 11 suites, 24 dances, 28 fantasies, and countless arrangements of 19th century Western European symphonic works. He also wrote over 70 vocal works, transcribed for use by the Sousa Band. His musical philosophy encouraged the use of music for entertainment instead of education. His mission was to reach every heart by simple, stirring music, and he wanted to make a music for the people, a music to be grasped at once. He was also said that he would rather be a composer of an inspired march than a manufactured symphony. Critics compared Sousa to the foremost conductors of the time due to the prestige he brought the symphonic band. Sousa ridiculed those who belittled bands, believing that there should be no hierarchy in art. John Philip Sousa died suddenly after a rehearsal with the Ringgold Band in Reading, Pennsylvania on March 6, 1932. The last work he conducted at that rehearsal was his own Stars and Stripes Forever. Thank you for joining me in this video about the life of John Philip Sousa. The President's own Marine Band completed a grand recording project for Sousa's 150th anniversary, which you can find on YouTube. A link to it can be found in the description box below. Like the video, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel for more. What do you want to learn about next? Leave me a comment down below. You can also support the making of these videos on Patreon. These videos take over 20 hours of research to complete, so Patreon is a great way to show your support. The bibliography for this video can be found on my website, dominiqueroyam.com. Interested in seeing my process? I document it on my social media, so follow me for more updates. My handles are listed below. Thanks again, and see you in my next video.